Eyes of the world were on the G-20 summit in Germany today.
Yeah, that is where the President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin sat down for a high-stakes and even higher-profile meeting, lasting much longer than anticipated.
KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with all the details. Dave.
Yeah, the actual G20 summit was kind of a sideline. You know, this really sort of overpowered everything else. They talked for more than 2 hours and by all accounts struck up a pretty good relationship, even though President Trump opened his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin outside the G20 summit by asking him about Russia meddling in the U.S. election. And from there, it got a little murky.
President Putin and I have been discussing various things, and I think it's going very well.
After the cameras were pulled out and the doors were closed, President Trump had a surprise for Russian President Vladimir Putin at their mini summit.
I'm delighted to be able to meet you personally.
According to the Secretary of State, President Trump confronted President Putin with the charges of election meddling in the U.S.
The president pressed President Putin on more than one occasion regarding Russian involvement. President Putin denied such involvement.
But the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, who, unlike the U.S. Secretary of State, allowed cameras to shoot his news conference, said President Trump accepted Putin's denials and expressed his own doubts about the meddling charges.
President Trump said, and I'm sure either he or Rex Tillerson himself will say, that this campaign of alleged Russian interference in U.S. elections is of a strange nature, because there hasn't been a single fact in all these months of allegations. President Trump said he's heard Putin's very clear statements that this is not true and that the Russian government didn't interfere in the elections and that he accepts these statements. That's all.
The Russians demanded proof, some evidence that they were meddling in the American election. CNN reports a senior Trump administration official denies the president has accepted Mr. Putin's denials. But some Democrats say based on President Trump's statements this week raising more doubts about the Russian hacking, they are doubtful about how hard he confronted Putin on the issue. Eric Swalwell, a congressman from Northern California, said this to CNN.
If it's true that the president accepted Vladimir Putin's account, then we should know that. And if the president doesn't believe that what they're saying is true, he should say, no, I confronted Vladimir Putin. I told him we know what they did, and it's not acceptable. But the president's silence, as far as I'm concerned, tells us everything we need to know, which is the Russian account is the only account that's out there right now.
Just hours before the Putin meeting, President Trump was still blaming others for the election meddling scandal, like former Hillary Clinton campaign manager John Podesta, about whom he tweeted, "Everyone here is talking about why John Podesta refused to give the DNC server to the FBI and the CIA. Disgraceful." Podesta, who did not have the authority to turn over the DNC server to investigators since he was the Clinton campaign manager, not an official of the DNC, fired back this tweet. "Get a grip, man. The Russians committed a crime when they stole my emails to help get you elected president." Much of the discussion during the meeting focused on Russian aggression around the world, including Ukraine, about which the Russians and the Americans agree to have more discussions. Now, back to the Russian meddling issue for a moment. President Trump reportedly did not threaten Putin with any consequences for the election meddling. And Secretary of State Tillerson said there was agreement, instead of dwelling on the past, to move on and focus on getting an agreement from Russia that there would be no future meddling to disrupt democracy. Jeff, Lena, back to you.